heroes amongst the line. There's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel. The old man Bills was running through his head. Cheryl probably got it hiding under his bed. Penny up to Annie making power for days. Don't listen to a word that the straight no says. Mike building batteries that power a ship. Victor comes and talking math, that's the water spiral dip. Sean chucking plasma volts a mile long. Sheila on the video making tone trumpet prongs. Bernie breaking matter, they said it couldn't be done. And to all the people in the chat, I know you're having fun. So it's time to spend your Saturday with the doping old man Bills.
Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Bills. Joe, what's up?
How dare you interrupt my hot dog eating?
Nice.
Happy Friday, everyone. Sorry. You have to deal with me shoving a hot dog in my face for a second, or else I'm going to die of starvation.
I'll do what you got to do, brother. We're all good. We're going to be talking about a little bit of Plasmoids today. We're doing the RAV episode coming out Tuesday, and we're kind of defining Plasmoid, RAV, ball lightning, and trying to see exactly what each one is so that we can distinguish the differences in between. Joe had made a good point earlier in our discussion that a lot of them have to do with the plasma, and they're all getting to one critical state where they can contain the plasma itself. But I think that's where the whole thing kind of breaks apart from there. We're getting stuff that's there, and then it goes away real quick like the plasmoid does. We're getting ball lightning where it continuously stays in there and stays in that contained state for quite a while and then moves around. And then we're getting the RAV, which is completely in the contained state at all times.
Right on. Yeah. It's funny how things play out, because when you do look at the definition of a plasmoid, the RAV checks all the boxes. The thing about it is that it's better in every way than the plasmoids as you know them, because the RAV isn't sporadic. The RAV is tethered, so it's actually able to be used, and because it's not transient. Most plasmoids are transient. They're just out there doing whatever they want to do in the environment that they're formed.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the differences, isn't it? I wanted to show something real quick, Joe. Pull this up. This right here is what they're talking about when they're saying plasmoid. Now, what happens is the energy gets to a point where the plasma pulls together, and you can see just a little layer on the outside where it's a different color. It looks reddish, and that's what's holding it in. It's kind of it's like you said, the RAV at some point in that, but you can also see at the bottom it's open and broken, and this is the reason it dissipates very quickly. So you get the energy that's in there, it's contained, you get a structure on the outside, but because it didn't fully form and close the loop, it then dissipates quickly.
Right. Well, it's missing major components that we've discussed from day one as being critical. And it's, as I said, if you want it all, you have to have all of the types of electromagnetism, all the modes present in, an even exchange, even not meaning equal. It needs to be in, a proper ratio of exchange, and all of the vectors have to be present. And what this says all day long is that is comprised of small instances of magnetism, okay, that are just holding it together because of the small instances of magnetism, whereas it's lacking a cohesive overall magnetic field that they share and that they build together, that they are both a part of and subject to. And without that, you don't have the spin, and without that, you're going to have part of a sphere, not all of a sphere.
Gotcha. Yeah. One of the things I found fascinating in this, Joe, is you can see at the top you have an anode. You can just tell by the little line at the top there that the energy is coming down. and at the bottom, the cathode is completely in water.
Yeah.
When they did this, it makes it interesting. And then you see the little dot. I don't know if you noticed it.
That's it.
There on the bottom right-hand side, you can see that little dot, and it's the same thing that the satellite of the RAV puts out.
Oh, yes, it is.
So I'm
It
wondering.
natively does that. Yep.
So I'm wondering if it's part of the self structure in the beginning, when everything forms. Does it form in a preset pattern?
Uh, I don't know. I think that it forms in relationship to that which it is made. Right. So, because this does share a similarity with the RAV, where there's an anode cathode dependency, right? It's. I think it's structuring the best it can based on what it has. I don't know what this lacks in order to separate it from a RAV. I don't know if it's in a vacuum chamber or not. You're more familiar with the experiment than I am.
This one here is not in a vacuum chamber.
It's not. So, I mean, realistically, the only thing that's missing from this equation, as far as I can tell, is just an intermediate substrate of some sort, in order to have that, structured cathodic feed. Because you need to, that's the part, that's what separates the RAV from everything else, if you haven't noticed, right?
Well, yeah.
Because it
Well, in
has an
this
intermedium.
one, they immediately shut it off as soon as they get the plasmoid formed. So they're looking. I think they're looking to create ball lightning, is what it looks like, but they don't understand it as well as they should, and they're getting like a big poof of plasma, and then it goes away. And
Right.
that's what I'm saying. It's open air, but plasmoids aren't just in the open air; they're actually in a vacuum chamber as well, which is kind of crazy.
Oh,
But
so
then they
follow
look
me here for a
better,
sec.
huh?
So why would it poof away? Well, if it lacks the magnetic component that I described before,
Mhm.
okay, that leads to the rotation, that leads to the compression, overall, you can hold it in a semi-compressed state. But as soon as it starts to build up and up and up, if it's not compressing and rotating, and then it doesn't have the right exchange, now you have an asymmetric amount of energy that's building up in high density. And once it overcomes a certain threshold, it ultimately doesn't have that right ratio anymore, okay, to sustain. So then it has to go away. It's like filling a cup, right? You can fill a cup up to the top, and once it's full, it'll start to overflow. It's kind of the same deal, but once this overflows, well, it loses all of its structure, and once that structure falls apart, so does the density.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is it doesn't spin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's a puff. It doesn't spin.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see by the broken line on the bottom right hand corner that it's going to dissolve quickly, because
Yeah.
the part of magnetism in an electromagnet is spin. And if you don't have spin in an electromagnet, it cannot contain the field. So it just blows out everywhere. And that's one of the main fundamental problems with this plasmoid, is it doesn't have the spin. And that's why it's open at the bottom. There's nothing that's rotational about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm seeing here to do with the asymmetry. And this rings more like how plasma acts in a tokamak than it does with a RAV or something else. Because what you can see is that because of there's an imbalance in its geometry. If you were to put this into motion, okay, chances of it actually evening out and forming a sphere without the pressure escaping from that one right side where it's weak, is improbable. So it becomes a unevenly loaded washer machine or dryer, where it's bringing the clothes up and then it's like, oh, dump down,
Yeah,
right?
immediately. Yeah.
And as soon as you have that, you have losses, major losses. And
It all goes away.
It destabilizes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Breaks it apart. Now I have
Mhm.
another picture here, Joe. Let me see.
Yeah, let me take a look while I'm taking a bite of this.
Yeah, here we go. We'll go to this one. I'll show you. These guys, I think these guys were trying to create ball lightning, and this is more of a like a donut shape that they came up with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they keep trying to create donuts. It's an unnatural shape. But here they go. They go in there and they got this thing. I think that they put the cathode in a sphere, not a sphere. I'm sorry, in a well, I guess it's a donut shape. Just they circled it around like a number one coil and a Tesla coil at the bottom right there, just a coil, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how they're able to get the rotation to make it kind of like a donut in this one. Let's see if I can zoom that in.
I mean, yeah, I see that. It does look a little frothy still, so to speak. Like, it's like a dense
It's
core or something, and it's just wispy. I mean, it's still cool. It's huge for what it's
oh
worth.
yeah, it is. Well, yeah, I mean they're trying to create the donut, and they definitely got it to. Look, I'll just say this, and I said this before. Yes, it's plasma. I agree with that, but it's more of an gaseous state of plasma. And here's what I mean: if you've dealt with high voltage and you get the purple plasma, right, and you can hear the high voltage hiss, it's more of a gas at that point than into a solid plasma. Okay, not that plasma is super solid or anything like that. It's just verging on the edge of conversion, is what I'm
Mhm.
saying.
Yes,
So
it is.
you're getting the thing that kind of acts like a gas. It's not acting more like a solid, like you would say plasma, and you think this thing that's solid that makes this perfect donut or whatever, right? No, it's more like it's filling it with gas. Is what it
Well,
looks
it's
like.
not as compressed because, like, for instance, we have videos from very early on in testing. In fact, the same video that the ghost worm shot out of,
Hmm.
right? We also had multiple instances in that same video where flubber shot out of the thing for all intents and
Hmm.
purposes. Like literal, like liquid, solid, gooey looking purple, but it was plasma. That's the point. But not the way it was acting, it wasn't. Well, I mean, I guess it was, but you get what I'm saying. It acted like matter.
When he put it in the vacuum chamber, it acted more like a plasmoid would in a vacuum chamber. It
Like a bubble.
exactly acted like that.
Yeah, like a bubble.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
So it's kind of interesting the way that they're doing this. I'll just say this, guys, and you've heard me say it a million times. That shape right there, that donut shape, is a natural shape.
Mhm.
It's not going to give you the energy state you're looking for. It just doesn't have the comprehension to do it. It, it's forcing a zone in the center that doesn't exactly exist the way you think it does, and it won't give you the next level of energy of a RAV because of that, because of that one structural difference. And you just got to understand what you're looking for. If you're looking for a 0 point in a coil, a donut shape's perfect. Okay, it's going to give you that point in the center where all the electricity matches in the center and it overlaps each other constantly. Then you're going to get exactly what you want. In plasma, it's not such a good thing. Okay. It means that you're starting to break something apart, that it's not exactly formed as cleanly as you'd like it to. It's a bad sign.
Right. Well, it's geometrically and dimensionally inferior to a sphere.
Oh, it is.
So there you go.
Let me show you another one. I got some more in here. Oh, this goes somewhere. I want to show this one right here. So this right here is in the vacuum chamber. And I just want to point this out. We look at this, and I see the structure around this thing, right? You see the reddish, you see the green on the inside, all that, right? What gets me is they're not looking at the outside of this entire thing as the plasmoid. They're looking at this little thing inside of it as the plasmoid.
Well, that actually pairs up with what I was saying about the plasmoid that you showed earlier, the one with the open top that we said was like looked like it was gonna fall apart at any moment, and the reason I said that was because it's like a lot of parts that are in a state of attraction that's structuring it. So in that case, that's kind of showing this. Like if you were to propose that there's tens of millions of microplasmoid structures, all with their own quasi polarity, and that is enough for them to structure, but not enough for them to have an overall cohesive field, then that becomes more relevant. But as you can see, the plasmoid itself is broken up into the layers, okay? But the whole entire thing isn't necessarily. And what we see in the RAV is that it builds out in those layers itself. Why? Well, not because the parts are necessarily different, but because it's taking that and making that macroscopic. What that implies is that that entire outer field situation that exists in the plasmoid may well be present in the RAV. However, at a larger scale to do with more of the sides of the energy, right? So how that ultimately disperses is significant because it's like I've said from day one. If the RAV acts like Maxwell's demon, it's separating high energy states and low energy states on their respective sides and concentrating them. So it's adding low entropy to the system and then allowing for the exchange to occur in the RAV itself. And that tends to be the point, right? That's exactly why you might not see the same structure here.
Let me shout out Darren, 5 Old Man Builds memberships. Thank you, Darren. I really appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Right on, dude. And not to mention, if you were to overlay what you're looking at right now with the Earth's magnetosphere, which we've done with the RAV fields multiple times, and agree that that is pretty much how it exchanges, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, you would see that it breaks out into these same types of geometries where it flares out and comes back in, flares back out on the outside. This is the same type of thing that you see. So
I want to show this, and let me zoom this in so everybody gets the point of what I'm talking about here. You see that blue down there? And that blue is basically right in that area is where the sheath zone is. You notice they're zoned out. There's different layers to everything in different colors, right? But why is this important? It's important because that plasmoid only forms on spin. Okay? It has to wrap itself around itself and create a spin in order to come out in that structure. And I'll show you this as we look at it. As you see the top ones here, how they're breaking apart and dissipating, it means that outer layer is no longer in spin. It is now deteriorated and now open it up for collapse.
now they do say that the collapse event is the energy generation is on the implosion, which makes sense, and that's proven in science. But if they're collapsing entirely and it's not sustained, well, that means that you need to repeat that exact process over and over and over again in order to get the same thing. But if you put it into a state where it doesn't allow for the collapse entirely and it leaves it in a pulsing state, then at that point you can utilize it for exactly what it is. You could get the energy off of every single time that explosion, the pendulum swings where it's not exploding anymore and it starts contracting, and immediately right there is your energy generation. And then bang, you start getting a pulse out of the entire thing, and that pulse can be captured for use.
Well,
Reality of it. It doesn't take anything away from what it's doing.
You just described the double RAV. When you can pulse and pull the energy every time it pulses, but then it vacuums to the other side and pulses, but it doesn't destroy the other side when it does it. That's amazingly important when you're dealing in a physics like this, because you absolutely do want the plasmoid, right? You want the plasma, you want the event to happen, but it's got to continue to stay happening while it pulses in and out, so the energy comes out between the two. It
Yeah. And why is that important? Thank you, Ulysses. That's big of you, brother.
Yeah, I want to shout out Ulysses, man. 10 Old Men's Build membership, man. Everybody should have a membership by now, man. We're doing great. Thank you, Ulysses. Uh, Thank you, Darren, man. You guys are so awesome.
Yeah. So why is the two important? Well, because every time you have two, you're taking it from a pulse state, okay, to a fluctuation state. So whenever you have something that is growing on one side, contracting on the other, and then contracting on one side, growing on the other, this is a node and an anti-node. And this is the difference between it being a static form of DC, okay, as opposed to a potential sine wave that could be picked up. And, once that turns into a current state, if it continues with this, what is it doing? It's sloshing. Well, that's an AC current at that point, isn't it? If it's in a constant state. So you pick up on that fluctuation and then you get your current out of it. But since you're picking it up through induction, are you taking away from the system? No. No, you're not.
Well, there it is right there, Joe. Take a look at that. It's a double rev. They pulse back and forth to each other.
One of the next.
And you can see the energy. This is a small little thing that we do on this small, but when we increase the size of this thing, the output of that energy, man, is just mind blowing, because I can't look at it live. I have to cover my eyes, put some welding goggles on, something. You can't watch this live. It's hard to see anything. You'll blind yourself.
If you look in the direction of it, you capture a glimpse that'll mesmerize you. It's like nothing you've ever seen before, unless if you've seen it in person. Because
Absolutely.
it's like, yeah, it's like one of those things that no piece of art could ever relate to you. Like a holographic, white, golden, shimmering light situation. It's just very, very undescribable. The light that it puts off, it's like nothing else.
Now, I'll say this is not the perfect condition double rev either.
No.
One of the things, and I said it last week, it's like a goalpost. You want a magnetic field to build in between them and that to go back and forth. That's going to be massively important when you do this. It makes it more consistent, the back and forth, and it allows you to create and collapse a magnetic field constantly, which allows to pull out the energy.
Well,
That's
the
one
other
of the
thing
biggest
too,
things.
though, is, and this goes to let this be a hat tip to Ashton Forbes, if you want to take it that way, but it happens to be inherently true, in my opinion.
Okay, go ahead.
The two could form that mutual magnetic field, but like everything else, right? We understand how that has to happen. Those two parallel fields, they have to pull into each other and cross, right? And it's not until they cross that you would get the then other vectors that would be a together magnetic field. Now, when you add one more component into this, okay, aka one more RAV to the two, all of a sudden you should have that. And when you do, the relationship should change, and it should be an orbiting type relationship. Those will cross and create your together magnetic field, or ought to. So it's just kind of food for thought there as to how that works. Like the two will pulse off of each other. Well, the third, would induce the motion that could set it in place.
Okay, let's take a look at this then, Joe. Because this might be a little easier to see it this way. This is something we were talking about off air. But I want you to notice the circular structure that goes on inside of this. There's 4 on the outside, there's a circular structure. There's 4 on the inside, there's a circular structure. And there's 1 center structure. You can clearly see the circular line goes around it. Okay. This is more like Ashton's orbs. When you create this on the outside, you get the spinning direction, you get the correct stuff. So it has to be like an electron on the outside that orbits like a satellite in order to get it. This is the inner structure of the RAV. Okay. You need that inner structure to match the outer structure, is what Ashton's talking about. It's open air, it builds in orbs, and they rotate in circular direction. That's what he's talking about. This is the core of a RAV. You need the core of the RAV on the outside in open air.
Yeah, I mean, it shows it all. It's like I said when we initially saw it, and when we were looking at it earlier today. It's by definition squaring the circle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to look at it through that lens, like esoterically, and all the ancient stuff points to squaring the circle, and this is exactly what that does. It's got all of the geometries in it that need to be there, so all the potential is there, and the structure is complete. And this is the kind of like big fuck you to people who were like, nice spark gap, bro, or oh yeah, that's a lens effect, man. Like handful of people that said that, like like let things like this do the talking, because this is what we predicted would structure out. Okay, this is how we know the science says it's going to structure out. And then you have a visual in a photograph consistently under this configuration that shows that structure.
Okay.
Need you say more?
I want to say this because there's something that scientists knew about energy that we didn't before, because they keep saying they can't see the atom. Let me tell you, I think they did. And I think that it's not as miniature as they always say it has to be. It can be built out bigger in the same exact way to see the exact same thing and then miniaturized. So please just understand that when I say this, because the next thing I'm going to do is draw the lines on it and show you exactly what they were looking at.
Yep.
And there it is. When they showed you the atom, they weren't lying about how it was built. This is the confusing thing. In the center of that, is it actually little balls inside of it mimicking the same thing that you see on the outside here? Because the rest of it lines up. Electrons orbiting a center nucleus. Is the center nucleus itself broken down in the same exact way as protons and neutrons? That's one of the big things here. This is what the RAV allows us to start to see. This is, by the way, with a phone camera. Okay, just understand that. This is not some high-speed camera, some detailed image. This stuff shows up in your phone camera as you're watching this, right? And when you slow it down, stop it, put it in slow motion, all of it. It completely keeps showing you this. So what were they able to see with their better cameras? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an interesting point. And it goes to show, like, this is actually there, by the way. And that's the thing. It's like actually there, but it falls outside the spectrum of your ability to see. And the sensor or the camera could pick up on it. And that's where it gets really interesting. If you see, I mean, look at the color of it. I mean, that's deep into the infrared spectrum in the surrounding area. And then polar opposite, into the looks like UV spectrum, which is why it's faded out, ghostly, white and stuff, because it's not vivid as far as colors that we perceive, but it's on that other side. So you have both the sides of the spectrum present in the photograph, and both of the sides of the extremes of the spectrum we can't see with our eyes. So it goes to show as to why we don't pick up on these things, but the camera sensor can. The camera sensor, for what it's worth, actually has the ability to pick up on a much broader spectrum. And it's the filters oftentimes that are put on cameras that limit that spectrum, so we get clean photos as far as how we perceive them, right? Because we want something that replicates, a good representation of what we're seeing in a photograph. But some of these camera phones and stuff, the lenses are so small and so on, the sensors are so small that the filtering seems to be a little, forgiving
Now,
into the other. Yeah.
I take pictures with my ZV-E10, and it gives me the same image.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I just want to point this out to people so that you guys understand this. We built this on clay. I should say Sean built this on clay. He also built it on a small cathode. So basically a wire right there that's probably 1/16 the size of the original wire he uses. So he burns the end of it in order to create the condition for this thing to start. Both pictures have come back with this structure in the center. We thought originally, hey, it's just a cathode effect. There's a tunneling going on. There's caverns going on inside of this thing. That's got to be what it is. But as we start breaking down other footages of things and different things that he did, we realize it's not the caverns. It's actually the structure on the inside.
That's exactly what it is, which is why like we said from kind of the beginning, it builds in coherence, right, with the conditions in which it's trying to fall into. So it structures out and builds that the same as when you see the virtual buildup of the snowflakes, right, like Sean likes to call them.
Yes.
Right, you see the snowflakes and they build out in their condition that they're most able to build out in. When the anode is structuring the cathode is organizing it in that same exact fashion. And that's exactly how it goes. It's not just some obscure, because it's porous, because it has caverns, because it channeled. It's literal set memory conditions as to what it wants in order to reach this exchange. And the weird thing is that wants to do this exchange, but it also doesn't want to lose all of itself to the other side either. That's the dynamic that you're dealing with. So it creates this structure that allows some, but not all. It becomes a resistor. In a very, very, I don't want to say permanent, but in a fairly permanent state of semiconductive resistance, if that makes sense. It has very specific properties of its own.
I'll point out here, I just want you to see this. The structure around this thing is perfectly formed in spherical shapes. Okay. So we'll take a look at the plasmoid again. And I want you guys to see this. And I'll try to zoom in on this one over here. Okay, on these two. That perfect structure we just saw.
That's like the A-bomb jellyfish.
Yeah.
Plasmoid.
The structure just isn't there. Like we see it in the vacuum chamber because the vacuum chamber sets a condition on the outside, forcing it into structure, but there's no rotational value to it, so it goes away quickly. In these open air ones, they start to form it and make the plume. So it's kind of like a nuclear reaction almost. On the one on the right looks like, but it can't close itself. So it can't create the system like the RAV does. So it'll never show you the inside of it.
Now, while you have this up, I want to go over with everybody what I said to you earlier, because even though this does not form the RAV, it is interesting to see the process that does break out in the formation of the RAV that is actually more obvious and more present here because of the lack of rotation. Okay. So if you scroll up and start at the top left real quick, right? All right. So what you're seeing here is that the two-dimensional phase, when the RAV would typically be rotating, okay, and then start pulling up off the surface. So the density level has now built up enough where it's coming up dimensionally. Now, once it comes up dimensionally, that is the creation, the start of the creation, okay, of the magnetic component that's going to bring it together. And what you could see in the next one over, okay, is what I called a parabolic condensation previously in the formation of the RAV, which is when it starts to accumulate, but it's parabolic, so it's kind of concave in and swooping around in a sort of fashion, right? Now, if you scroll down to the next one on the left, okay, now if you go in there, what you're going to see is what I call the parabolic sweep. Okay, so what you notice here is that now that it's parabolically sweeping, you see that little wave that's curling over, right? Now it has come into a vortex, a form of magnetism, okay, which in this case may very well just be minimally rotational and tubular, but nonetheless, it's still a vortex of magnetism, and you get that parabolic sweeping. That's the one layer wrapping around the other, okay? And if you notice in that, you have a satellite starting to form as well, because that's what is going to keep the offset balance of the initial formation is that. Then when you go to the next one, what you see is that it pinched, right? So you see that it came into a column, but that column pinched, and as soon as it pinched off, you went from a vortex, like an actual tornado, into a sphere. And that's exactly what we proposed that the RAV was doing in its initial formation of doing it. But here you see it, it's clear as day. And that parabolic sweeping is super interesting because it's directly related to shear. And we know what shearing, and Z pinching, does in terms of plasma physics. I mean, that's the grail. That's the stuff you want. Well, that's what we have. That's what we've had all along. So very cool to see.
I wanted to show this real quick, and we'll just take a look at this one where I say it. If you want to get the energy from atoms, okay, but you don't want the nuclear effect, what are they talking about? They're talking about creating the RAV in that situation. You want the plasma. You do not want the explosion effect that they were getting out of the nuclear explosion. So as you look at this, you can see exactly what they're looking for in this. They say we want the energy, we do not want the explosive factor. Well, in the RAV, you get the energy. What we haven't done and what plasma physicists haven't done is created the two. As soon as you create the two that bounce off of each other, now you understand why your sun is entangled to something else. Okay? Yep. Why everything is all entangled to the source. It starts to make sense now. One pulses and puts out energy and the other one doesn't. A sun is an explosion over time. They're getting their nuclear moment in that sun. It fuses things because as it builds out, it's going to fuse. That's nature. That's how transmutation works. It's not going to go back to a very small state and condensed state until it's done exploding. It's in a heavy time dilation field. So just understand this. When they start talking about the U.S. has things that most other countries don't, it's because they understood this experiment completely. That time dilation field and how slow it makes it go because you're spinning in rotation with frequency is so very important to all of this. It is the key to Ashton's orbs. It is the key to plasma physics and fusion. It is the key to all of it. And without that, you really do not have the right answer. That's why it gets very tenuous and you look at everything and you go, am I creating donuts or spheres? And you realize when you're creating the sphere, it will compress into a donut if the right condition and vacuum on the other side is met. 99% of the time, you'll never get it. You'll have to force it.
Now, it plays a role a little bit because if you go and look back to classic old man builds, hashing all this stuff out, focusing on all sorts of different stuff between free energy and anti-gravity and this, that, the next. The one thing that we could always agree on is that there's no way to just have one. You see, all the things that everybody was looking for, the answer was always the same, and it could be achieved different ways, and it could be set up to optimize a certain function. But the fact is that when you have something like the RAV that forms, you actually have everything that needs to be present for any one of those things to occur. And the common denominator of it all is time dilation. And the implication of the time dilation, knowing that that's directly related to gravity, but understanding that that means that it's been a multi-dimensional equation all along. So the failure of science, largely the trickery that we've seen, is this bifurcation of general relativity and quantum mechanics. See, because they treat quantum mechanics under a different set of laws, and they don't correlate those laws in how they come here because they're not here. So once you take all that math that you have for quantum mechanics, and then you realize that it is, again, a dimensional equation, all of a sudden you will bridge that gap. I could almost guarantee that would be the case, just by putting more spatial dimension.
They can't see the forest through the trees because they drew geometry wrong.
Right, exactly.
They have no idea what they're looking at when you get that problem wrong. When you start creating T1 and T2, Y1, Y2, and forget the fact that if you do that on your 3D printer, it's a straight line. When you have to write it out, it's thousands of lines of code to make the arc. To even get it to go in an angle, you have to put a Z factor in there. The fact that there's no, Y1, Y2, Z or Z3 or Y3 or the third dimension in there at all, you fail. That's the problem.
Right, and that's let alone going into upper dimensions beyond that.
Oh yeah,
Once
it
you
makes
start
it
building
you
up
can't.
upper beyond that, then all of a sudden, if you plug and play that into the equations, I'd almost guarantee that you have your direct correlations.
Well, the problem is you get 1,000 world theory as soon as you don't make dimensions correct. You're going to say every dimension out there, so now I got 1,000 different worlds, and you're going to misunderstand the problem. Because mechanically, you go to put this thing together, and you're thinking, how the hell am I going to make 1,000 different worlds? No, I'm just going to correct the math and put it in geometry instead of algebra, and I'm going to do just fine. I could make this experiment work. But there's no 1,000 different worlds. It's one world, one sphere. It's as simple as that. I'm sorry, and I know that breaks people's hearts because they like to think about all these dimensions and all time and I'm passing gas in this one and not in the other one, but I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way in real physics.
I mean, I have a little bit different way of looking at it, but it's kind of a hybrid way of looking at it. And
Go ahead.
The funny thing is that it doesn't really compete or negate what you just said and what you believe either. See, the thing is that it's just more broken down than that, in my opinion. Right? So each individual person, for instance, has basically, imagine it as a fractal self, right? Like yourself, as you traverse through the present, are constantly encountering the future, and that future is broken up into all different fractals in all these directions, right? Now, whenever something happens, you're interacting with other fractal patterns that are coming into yours, and this actually pulls your path into that. That's the common reality. So it's like this thread where, like, by virtue of you and I knowing each other, or having this podcast or being together, there's a direct interaction of our fractal pattern, so to speak, where something I do is going to affect a small little tiny thing on your end, and it brings it this way. All these other things are just going off into a state of diffusion that didn't happen. But the probabilities are still there. And, if you do look at it spatially, from a spatial dimension perspective, right, that is actually where all the probabilities could potentially exist. So it becomes a little counterproductive for purposes of our conversation to go into, if you were to access that other dimension, what is that like for you? What does that mean? What can you do? Becomes counterproductive. That's where it would really fall apart for you, I think. Right. But, if you take it into consideration that, we all have that going on, but so does the Earth, and so does the solar system, and everything is nested and connected in that way. The closer you are to something, the more effect you could have on it.
I'll say this, Joe. When they make a little thing that I can step into and see all the different me's and all those different things, I'll 100% agree with you. Until then, I can only go on what I physically see.
I get it. And I think that most people, kind of feel that same way. It's easier to believe what you could see.
Let's check this out. So this is another one of the experimentations to make that plasmoid.
That thing's huge.
Dude, it's massive. Like, that's like, I don't know, man, like way over the top on voltage. That's got to be like 600,000 volts or some crazy number or something stupid.
I'm pretty sure the guy in the picture is squinting, but I'm not certain.
He might be dying. With all that energy around him, he might be dying.
Yeah.
Dude, it looks like a ghost, doesn't it? Like the one on the left looks like a ghost. The one on the right looks more like a round, how it built out that outer layer like a sun, and it has that brightness to it. But the one on the left looks like I'm playing Pac-Man. It's like doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
First of all, that the containment is shit on this thing. Because if you look at the background, look at the intensity of the shadows of everything against the wall directly behind it.
Oh yeah.
Like it's putting out so much that the containment just simply isn't there. Now, if this thing, how long does it last for? Do we know?
I don't know. I think it's in seconds.
I mean, when that thing collapses, it probably puts out, even if it's collapsed by virtue of powering off, I bet you it puts out a pulse of all sorts of bad. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Oh, there's got to be like radiation going off on there.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That thing pulsed when you turn it off.
Different kinds of light. Yeah. Dude, no wonder why he's squinting, because his glasses magnify it and be zapping his eyeballs.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the cables going into that, and it's high voltage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He did have the idea right, though, with the mass and the cathode. That's the point. See, you add the mass to the cathode, that gives you that offset that's a critical component. You can't just use a negative wire necessarily. It's got to have some kind of greater mass, or greater mass potential or something. It's always got to be that way in order to form.
Well, right here, why the orange light? It's the breakdown of energy. You're getting more hysteresis, so you're getting the heat on the outside versus, everything else. There's more energy condensed in the center, and then it's dissipating as it comes out, so it changes color. That's why our sun is probably white, and then on the outside, it probably comes out yellow. You know what I mean? Just because of the outside temperature lowers, the amount of amps, or however you want to say that, is in there higher, and you get a color difference.
Yeah, well, right. So the color is either going to be heat, like Nathan said. It's either going to be elemental, like certain gases and elements are going to create a plasma excitation of a certain bandwidth, right? So there's that. And then there's just overall frequency in general, where it could emulate a like an elemental color, for instance, just by changing the frequency of whatever the constituent is. If you bring it outside of its native frequency band, it'll change colors.
But yeah, just like they always say with light, you change the frequency, you change the color. So that's absolutely true.
Yeah,
But
and
it
whenever you
also
compress
changes the
something,
temperature.
right, and anytime you're compressing something, you're automatically changing its frequency because the frequency is being contorted at that point and confined, and that's going to usually increase the frequency.
Yeah, the one on the left, by the way, you can see the bottom wants to suck in like the donut. You know what I mean? You could see it comes down in a curve and likes to come back in, and you see the lines coming down from it, and it starts to curve on the other side. It so wants to form a donut and doesn't have enough pressure, you know what I mean, on the top to even get it to join.
Yeah, I bet almost anything that the one on the right is just before it gave out,
Oh yeah.
because it's looking like an instability right there, and it's looking like it's putting out like the equivalent of massive solar flares and stuff like that. It's actually behavior we've seen in the RAV. It just looks differently when the RAV does it because everything is in such a state of compression that when it actually leaks, it like doesn't leak fluidy like that or gaseous like that, and it leaks like actually throwing liquid, like viscous liquid out of it because it's compressed. But there's always a color difference. So your RAV is bright white, golden, sparkly, magic, light of God stuff, and then the stuff that blasts out of it oftentimes is like dark, dark, dark purple, or it's stuff like that. It's like a whole different frequency band.
Well, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, when anything gives off light, it gives off frequency. So the RAV being in resonance frequency in all those zones, it's changing how it's doing, and it shows as more of a circle on the RAV, where on the one on the right it shows more of a explosion of it. RAVs don't explode like that. They explode in what looks like blinding light. Like if you're looking at a car light coming at you, and you look at the center, okay, there's going to be a beam that goes off both ways. And then you're going to look at this light and it's going to have all the colors of the rainbow and it's going to blind the living daylights out of you. That's what the RAV's doing. When it comes out of that controlled state, that's what it does.
It sure does.
Let me see what other ones I left. Oh, ball lightning. I wanted to talk about this.
All I gotta say is, man, if we had a RAV that big, your mind would be blown. Like if it isn't already, but like if you had a RAV this big, like I don't know. Like first of all, it's frightening.
Well, you're powering your house. I'll tell you that right now. You got a RAV that big, you're powering your house. I mean,
like that, probably more than that, man. Like this,
you might be powering the block. Maybe keep going.
Maybe more than that, man. Like I think that if the RAV's that big, I think that's probably the same as a power station at that point, to be honest.
Yeah. You know what? Now that I think about it and the contrast of it, how do I say this? The RAV looks like my little cursor you see right here compared to this thing. Maybe a little less.
Yeah, I would say that's right.
Yeah, you put it over here to this one and you go.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Yeah. So.
Well, then again, the sun does swell up and grow in magnitudes of size before it fails, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but you're
so
you're just not holding the energy in.
Yeah.
So okay, let's take a look at this now. This is ball lightning. right here. And when we're looking at this in comparison as well, I want to show you something. If you can see my cursor on the screen, I want you to notice this line right here of lightning.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
Now, I want you to notice something about it. This, when it contacts it, makes the turn. Okay? This is different. So we got an anode and cathode top, but it's the Earth. Okay?
It's the Earth.
So you have a layer of energy, what is it, 100 volts per meter as you go up, but it makes these layers. And as soon as you get the amplification during a rainstorm, and it's one of the only times that happens inside the Earth, it acts just like the cloud layer. If you ever look up in the sky and you see the clouds, it looks like there's a line. Like somewhere they stopped coming down at a certain point and stayed up at a certain area, and there's a line up there. You don't notice it right away, but when you start looking at cloud formations, you'll start to see it. You go, man, they're held back on a line. This is that line now in electricity as you see it. But what happens is you have electrical coming in, it hits it, and now it creates a spin. When it creates a spin, now it can form the ball that is ball lightning. It can now start a structure because the voltage is off the charts, just way off. The amount of energy in it can't dissipate like the plasmoid does. It can't get away. It has to stay in it and it'll stay contained in it. That's one of the differences here. This got the curvature, it got the spin, it got to be able to rotate into the correct structure, but the voltage is so off the chart that it means it can't dissipate right away. So as soon as the condition of the environment goes away and this line is no longer visible at all, it means that this thing is free to move about anywhere it wants to now. It hasn't dissipated yet, so now it goes wherever. That's one of the differences.
That plays a role. So if you're gonna form something that's RAV-like, okay, and you're gonna form it without the dependence of an anode cathode, at least for a brief time, well, it would make a whole shit ton of sense for you to have your intermedium be something like a cloud, because you have the moisture that holds all the potential to actually put it into a charged state, for it to fall into a structure, to then get hit and spun, and then the exchange occurs. And as long as it maintains that spin state once it was structured, now the lightning flash is over and it remains because it hypercharged and put into structure and motion material, being the cloud. And not for anything, that goes to show, like, I hate to keep on bringing them up, but it just seems to be relevant. When you look at Ashton's orbs, right, there's been contemplation all over the place. Well, what do we think is what's inside of it? Like, what's the catalyst? Like, what is it that this is attached to? Well, to me, the answer is pretty obvious. And ancient alien theorists believe that it's the fucking moisture from the clouds. Okay, like, this is what I'm saying. It's pretty apparent that that's how something like that could come about. And now, if it's got a charge, now you could start to steer it just by putting a repulsive charge behind it and pointing it in the direction of whatever it is. Then you can sit there and put the an attractive charge and a repulsive charge on whatever you want. The thing's basically directed. So I mean, that's an idea.
Here's the thing. The plane has to become the cathode in order for it to work. It needs not only that, it needs the vortex of it. So what they're actually doing is creating the energy source opposite the plane. They get the plane to act as a cathode and the Earth to act as the environment for the spin. So they build one, it goes off, and then it sucks in around the cathode, okay? Then the second one comes in and gets in line. The third one comes in and gets in line. The only way that works is that has to be the cathode.
Yeah, I agree, because it's sucking it in.
Yes.
That's the whole entire point, is it's sucking it in. And it's got to have that energy exchange, so it makes total sense. If you have something that's positively charged, and it's in a locked position. It's going to bring in a lot of negative energy, and well, if you have three of them, right, it's going to contain that negative energy within the three. Well, now what happens when the densities get high enough and they start to, exchange again? Well, as soon as it exchanges again, they become attracted to each other. As long as you have the offset differential of the density being much greater with the positive potentials, it'll just contain it. But as soon as that level starts to come up closer past that threshold of exchange, the exchange happens. Well, what happens then? Well, cavitation, an expansion event, and a contraction event. And the same thing we've been talking about. It's just a repeating process over and over again of everything at every scale.
So what the crazy thing is when you do plasma orbs in open air like that, they're going to be cold plasma. They're not going to be hot plasma. So when you look at this, you got to take it as a little bit different than your, what'd you call that thing? The big donut machine?
The Tokamak, that piece of shit?
Tokamak, yeah. That's hot plasma. When you're dealing in open air like this, it's going to be cold plasma, which it means it's just on the opposite end of the spectrum. So when you see that, it goes back into that hole when Ashton says that, right? And it sucks a plane in, it looks like, right? There's only one way to do that. There's only one reason for it, okay? Is if you're creating the rotation, you're creating the time dilation in it, and you're looking for something to disappear in that time period. Now, does it do it? Does it not do it? We all don't know. Like Joe said, it could be that it went to a different, one of your 1,000 world theories, that it could go into the different world with a different event, right? And it could have just went right into that zone. That's entirely possible, or it could have time traveled back or forth into the future. They've had many times where they talk about, oh man, this thing come out of nowhere. Oh man, this ship went into a zone over there in the Bermuda Triangle, and they can never find it again, right? Not even when they search the seafloor. So there's certain instances where that kind of stuff does happen on the Earth because you're dealing with so much energy at once. It's not like a little event. It's a monster event. So
right.
It didn't blow up, I tell you that.
No. I don't think so.
We would have seen that. That's what happens when you take the explosive value out of a nuclear test. You start to get time dilation fields that are massive, and that's what's going on there. So let me just say this for those who don't understand the concept of it. You have to rotate energy in different directions. It can't all be the same direction. It doesn't hold the value. As soon as you create one and the next one out, if they're the same direction and spin, forget about it. It'll just bleed into the next one, right? To get the frequencies, you have to change rotation. That's why the atom isn't built out like this all the time. It's built out like this, then like this, then like this, because it's all containing it in its own zoning. Therefore, you must have a different rotation on each one of them. It can't just be one. You get the breakdown of rotation, and then you'll start getting this. It'll be faster here, slower here, and then faster here again. Why? Because that's the breakdown of rotation. That's the outer field breaking it down. It can no longer turn in different directions. That's why when you get the weather of the Earth, one's faster, one's slower, more heat. Next one's faster again, more cold. Faster it is, the colder it is, the less spin it has, the more heat it creates. But that's what you find in our environment all the time.
Well, like sometimes I can't help but feel like, people in the know, and there's lots of them, and they're not always the people that you would expect. They're not the people like Nathan and I, where we have a podcast and we're like, oh, well, we're going to talk about the whys and the physics and who else is doing it and what's different, showing it. Sometimes, I feel like they're just thumbing their nose at us because the truth is so wild that you could actually say it, and it's hugely entertaining. And you're not exposing anything because it just sounds so out there. I mean, there was that whole TV show that I loved at the time and stuff. And it was before I ever started thinking about any of this stuff. It was like Manifest, right? Well, the whole entire premise of that was the airplane took off. The airplane went into a storm with ball lightning, or black lightning, they called it. The damn thing disappeared for 5 years, and then out of nowhere came out like, and nobody knew they were even gone, and landed. And everybody in the world was like, "Wait a second, we thought you were dead. We thought you crashed. We've been looking for you for years. We've all moved on with our lives, or whatever. Or we've been grieving for the last 5 years, or whatever it is." And then you come to find out that, through this whole experience, everybody that was involved in it, now they have a greater connection to the whole. There is like more to it than just that. There was stuff that had to be remedied and resolved because the timeline was screwed up. Why? Because time dilation. And if they didn't fix the timeline, if they didn't get everything in order the way that it had to be, well, then they were just all going to go back to where they came. They were just going to die again. So, yeah, again, I feel like you get the thumb to the nose every so often. Hollywood will come out with this stuff, or you listen to a song and be like, "Oh man, these guys are onto it. They know the deal." It's out there. There's people. They just all look at it different ways.
Oh, absolutely. I'm 100% there with you, Joe.
Yeah.
Kind of a trip, man. But they got to make the show good, so they got to make the reason to go back and stuff like that. But that's kind of a cool reason. You know what I mean? It makes all the sense in the world. I just kind of find it funny, man. I mean, it's like, here's everybody, saying special effects and this and that, instead of saying, hey, is there actual physics behind it? I mean, is there an actual way that it could work? I know a lot of people like to come out and naysay things right away. I don't really believe in that. I always like to say, is it physically possible? And then when we look at everything and all the different physics to it, then we can distinguish it. Because even on the outside of physics, there's things that happen that most people in physics will tell you are impossible. I've seen it millions of times, especially when we do the RAV or we do frequency things. They seem to be lost on resonance altogether. There's no, I mean, that should be the simplest one. And I've seen a lot of people fail immediately when they telling me about one speaker and frequency and saying they're in resonance, and they're just not. You know what I mean? And or can I create resonance in it by using one frequency generator? Well, what is resonance? It's the oscillation between the two. So what do you think? I mean, can you do it with one speaker then? No. Still the same. You know what I mean? Do I have to have two? Yes. Why? Well, just go back and look at, you remember those old things? What was it? I think it's Hindu culture. And they look at the Vimana and you see the 4 pipes. And you say, well, why is there 4 pipes? Well, if you realize that each pipe puts off a resonance frequency, and you realize that you need 2 of them to put it in resonance, right? So each one gives you a frequency, 2 of them puts it in resonance. There's 4 in there because you need a beat frequency of slightly off, yeah. Then it starts to make sense. You start to go, hey, now I understand that. Now I'm getting to the point where my mind is getting in the actual understanding of what's going on. Guys, what we're trying to say here in all of this is everything that they told you, frequency, resonance, harmonics, all of it's in physics. Physics doesn't say that it's there. Every single part of it is there. That's what makes it run. They haven't combined the two. They think it's esoteric. They just don't, they're not getting it.
They
don't understand.
See, the fact is that it really does boil down this simplistically, although it just doesn't play out that way when you necessarily go to engineer it, right?
But it does play out that way in engineering.
Well, I'm just talking about when it comes to like the energy that you use and what you put in and that sort of thing. The point is the resonance and the beat frequency aspect of it all goes back to the wave aspect of it. There's not a single type of energy that isn't subject to resonance and beat frequency. That's every single type of any sort of energy is all subject to that. But why? Well, that's because that's what it is anyway. Is it's all waves. That's all it is. When you break it down to the finest point, it doesn't matter how you define it. That is what it is, and that's why it reacts no matter what it is with it. Is that's what it's constituent of in the first place.
I want to thank Lightspeed real quick for 509
Yeah, right on, man.
membership.
Yeah, we have a ton of new members today. Everybody is now a member, just about. It looks like.
Right on, Lightspeed. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Astrolab said before, like like binaural beats and stuff. Yeah, it's exactly the same in how it works, and something that we've discussed at nauseum. Hemispherical synchronization, binaural beats, just being able to even put your brain in the state of resonance on one side, resonance on the other, and then the combine of the two. And the way that the brain works is the combine of the two is, the overall state, but then you have two separately functioning things that are doing two different things in their own resonances, allowing for a great expansion, massive, neural pathway training and stuff, that to the point where, like, without even being able to, like, meditate per se, you could train your brain into meditative states at will if you listen to it enough. That's how it goes.
Well, the beat frequency is a burst of energy.
Yeah.
It's acting like the double rev. It's throwing out, as these two things are in oscillation together with each other. The Tesla coil, when you do it, it's, when number one and number two over here, and number one and number two over here, okay? That means that I got four, and they're in resonance, right? So they're paired off. Now you get a beat frequency, which is when the energy comes together and explodes. Now, in physics, they say this is where it cancels out. The energy just cancels out, it goes away. Well, energy can't be created or destroyed, which means they come together and they, boom, burst out into energy. That's the beat frequency.
It ends up on a scalar vector with an offset. So
there you go.
When you're talking about frequency, you're going to have a certain hertz of offset that remains, which is then hugely amplified, and then you're going to have a diffuse scalar burst that occurs too, which will then actually probably collapse. And if you're talking about hemispherical synchronization, like within your head, like that scalar will probably make it into your hemispheres, and then actually collapse and amplify then each resonant state that it's in, and then further elevating the process of beat frequency. You see, it's like synergistic.
Yeah, well, in saying that, Joe, you can't reach the frequency necessary without the beat frequency in order to get it in oscillation with your body. You realize that because your body's in hertz. You're in, what is it? Not megahertz, but kilohertz in the frequency of your coils. But the beat frequency itself is in hertz. And it's a beat. It's a binaural beat, but that's what your body's in. So MDR, what do they call that? MHD machine? That's the whole reason for it. I mean, when you really look at it and you ask, why are those Tesla coils there? Why are we doing this? What's going on? It's the beat frequency. It's the only thing in hertz that matches anything in your body that can create something like that. That's the only way that they're aligning it. So what do you do when you meditate? You align, your lungs and your heart together in the rhythm? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there, but pretty much total coherence would be nice. Like, if you can achieve that. But, even just having it induced in your head is enough to oftentimes coax the rest into place.
Well, let me say it this way. If you set out a high enough beat, doesn't the rest of the beats themselves, even in music, start to align themselves and sound right? So it's like one singer in an opera, right? Not an opera. What do they call it? Chorus. When you get the one singer in the chorus doesn't sound right, two singers sounds better, a whole bunch of them together, now it sounds the same, right? So to get all of them to unify, you have to have one that's overall between them all, right?
Hmm.
But that's what creating it, artificially does. It's rhythming them all together. Usually you do it in your brain and it drops down to the rest of them and puts your chakras in the right spot, right? But this is doing it a different way. I don't know if
Yeah,
that makes sense to a lot of people, but
I agree.
that's a mechanical way of looking at a more of a spiritual thing. I don't know if you want to say it that way. Probably spiritual is the wrong word.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact is that all the stuff that we're talking about with the ball lightning and the Rav and all this stuff, it all works off of the same principles. At the
Oh,
end of
it
the
does.
day, it's all layered frequencies coming together. The sum of them both, the remainder, how that all pans out. That's why you see the structuring, because all the nodes that you see superimposed that you showed before, which have all the geometries in it. Um, that's all that is a standing wave pattern. The standing wave pattern is the byproduct of that occurring and reoccurring, occurring and reoccurring. It's like cymatics works, right? It's the same as cymatics because it's putting a frequency out. Then there's a geometry that it interacts with, whatever the threshold of the dampering is, round or square or whatever. Well, that geometry makes a difference because that is deterministic of then what frequency you're going to get back. The ratio is significant because if it's a bigger area versus a smaller area, well, that changes the frequency relationship. So that's why all those dynamics come into play when forming these standing wave patterns. They would have to be, see, you could take something and proportionally make it out and then get the same pattern, right? But if you just changed it disproportionately, you would not get the same pattern. And that has to do, again, with it falling into resonance. See, it's going to fall into resonance no matter what. No matter whether or not you get what you were expecting out of it is consequence to what I just said. So if you want it repeated, it has to follow the same pattern, the same ratios, the same relationship.
So check this out, Joe. I'll say this because it needs to be said. This is why the fifths and all that are important, and why the RAV builds out, and why all other machines that are circular build out this way. It's not that the choir is singing the same exact note in the same way. Okay, they're doing it in resonance in different zones. So you get the center that it builds out, it builds out, it builds out. Each one of it's its own zone, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth harmonic. Okay. Every single one of them could be different. You could have a tenor on one side and a bass on the other, but they're all harmonious together because they're building out each part of that zone. But then you look at all the energy in the RAV itself, it's telling you that resonance frequencies building out in zones is where it's at. Harmonics does it in the same way. We're all
Mhm.
talking about the same thing. Your heart and your lungs aren't going to beat at the same frequency. What's going to happen is they're going to be zoned. So every time you look at it, one spherical structure, the next spherical structure, the next one, each one goes in its own zone, how it builds out. That means the chakras, when they're aligned, it doesn't mean that they're in a straight line. It means that they built out the zone properly. The first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. They're putting them in the structure they're supposed to be in nature because everything in nature has that rotational ability in frequency, is what they're saying. Therefore, you're aligning them means that you're putting them in the correct spot in that zone that they build out in. It's a completely different concept than a straight line. You see, everything in nature is rotational. Everything in nature is building out in zones. Everything building out in harmonics. You can see it play out all day long in plasma. You can see it all day long playing out in how you do all your music. You can see it as soon as they start singing. Okay, it all makes sense when you put it into that way, because now you're thinking of it like, man, if that builds out that and this builds out that way, that means that everything that I do, if I can just create those zonings, I'm going to get a higher amount of energy out of it. Why? Because that's what always happens. It's the way nature does it. It's how it's structured and how it likes to build things. It's the key to understanding it. If you start thinking about it in the a linear, it's got a flat thing, or it you know what I mean? It's only got 2 dimensions, or it doesn't have all the dimensions to it. You're totally blown in the wrong direction, and you can't see the coherence of it. You have to start seeing it the way nature builds it out. It builds spheres. It builds one from the other to the other, all different frequencies in there. And when they do, it's just like the choir. It's absolutely harmonious.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the way that it goes. Listen, because we were talking about it, I'll relate it, but the choir works just like you were saying before, when you're breathing and your heart, they have to be in coherence, right? And if you're to hold your breath, right, your heart just puts out a pure sine wave. But if you ever notice, like when you see what a heartbeat pulse looks like, it's staggered and broken, and there's a pause of, in between. Well, we know that the heart's pumping, and it makes sense, right? So it expands, it contracts, and it expands, and it contracts, and there's your sine wave. It's an expansion and contraction.
But
So
it's got
why?
four valves.
Right. So, but how come you don't get the perfect sine wave then? Well, because under normal circumstances, you're breathing, it creates back pressure.
Okay,
It's that it creates back pressure on the wave, and that's exactly what you end up seeing is the rhythm of the breath in and its relationship to the sine wave beat of the heart. But now, the closer you could actually get right to having your breath follow that same rhythm, you could lead it to having amplification events in a sine wave form much more closely, and a less staggered beat pattern of your heart. Closer you get to that sine wave, they say that the more coherent you are in that regard. Is a huge magnetic field amplification that would have to occur then, because the heart has the greatest magnetism of any part of the entire body. So whenever you're talking about having a coherence event through your breath in your heart, you're going to deal with a much greater field that would extend out.
But
Yeah,
just so you know, the heart has 4 valves.
it does.
It's 2 resonance frequencies into a beat frequency that you get out when you see it. You're finding the beat. You haven't
Mhm.
found the resonance of it. You found the beat of it. That's the point. It's just like a Viamana. Okay, you're getting frequencies in there. You're getting resonance in there, and then you're getting a beat frequency that builds out in between them.
There is a beat between the chambers, but like the thing about the heartbeat is that it's bum 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 boom, and it's a two-stage process, but it's two things happening: contraction and and the some of those apparently is again a sine wave. That's my understanding of it.
Uh huh.
The
Well, the
some
beat frequency shows up as a sine wave.
Mhm.
Oh, is that B? Sorry.
I think it
I
wasn't me.
think my desk just rumbled or something.
Something happened.
Huh. Anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right. It does show up as a sine wave, and it does show it that way. But then again, the Earth does it the same way. The Earth is in a perfect sphere. If you took the thing that we said to the atom, what it looks like with the lines, it's one thing contracting while one of the other ones in one of the opposite fields expands. But it's all of them. So it's this one, this one, this one, this one, you know what I mean? As the whole thing. But that's exactly what the Earth is doing. it makes perfect sense of why it's doing it, because they're one across from each other. So one is actually the, like we showed that one plasma thing, the plasmoid. The other one is a dark one, and they have to work with on each other, and they're trading energy. It's an energy exchange between them. So when you look at that in the earth and you think about it, it's boom, 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 boom. And then you get this wobbly looking thing that looks like on the outside like a golf ball, and you're going, well, how does that exist? Well, because there's a plasma structure in the center of this planet that you're not understanding, that's doing that to the entire planet. But it's no different than what's happening in the via mana or your heart. It's all the same thing. It's why we don't have chaos. We have perfect structure. It appears as chaos because you don't understand the environmental conditions. It changes everything. The environment continuously is messing up your whole thing on this, all of it. The energy's the same. It's the environmental condition that keeps changing on you. And because of that, you don't recognize it at all. Hey, by the way, Joe, how do you make gold magnetic?
How do you make gold magnetic? I never thought about it, so I'm going to take a second with it. I mean, I would say that it's probably like I feel like there would have to be a phase change, first of all.
Okay,
Um,
I'm there with you.
So I think a phase change that would open up its molecular and lattice structure, because gold is a crystal. Then you would have to be able to structure it back so that it would maintain some polarity, which means that you would need to have, it's highly conductive. So you would have to induce a magnetic field around it, which means that you would need an alternating restructurization of it. So if you just took its regular lattice structure and then it built up and then it shifted, and then you built up and it shifted again, shifted. In that case, I think that it would have magnetism. That's how it would become magnetic. But the other way is maybe to charge it while it's in a liquid state. So, there's a high energy potential stuck in the lattice. I think that's possible too, because that's how iron becomes magnetic.
Okay.
So maybe more than one way to skin that cat, but those are my guesses. I think that it is already inherently somewhat magnetic, even though you don't perceive it that way. Everything is magnetic to a certain degree.
This is I'll give you the short version and then the longer version. The short version is you got to add gold into the magnetic core. Okay? In order for it to pick up the signature of the gold at all, it has to match what gold is. Therefore, as soon as you put gold into it, you can make it magnetic just by doing that. So
I get what you're saying. So the iron is what's in the core here. So the iron is therefore
will not talk to the
built
gold.
up the resonance.
So when you say phase change, think of iron as this is on your oscilloscope, going straight down the line. This is your iron, right? This is what they said all oscilloscopes do, right? Where's your gold? It's over here. So your phase change isn't the hump and then the hump going next to it. That's not a phase change. Your phase change is this.
Mm.
Now, when I look at this on my oscilloscope, this one appears shorter now on there. When I turn it this direction, like it doesn't have as much length on it. Why? Because to the oscilloscope, it shows there's less energy, but it isn't when you turn it. Okay? But when you turn it back, it looks like less energy. This is a phase change. Okay? So when you get into that, everything, if I put silver here, if I put, aluminum here, they're all phase changes going into the same one. They all build out like this and come back in. It's the same thing when you look at the afterburner, how it goes and goes whoop, like that. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's doing the same thing. So when you say a phase change, then isn't the hump over the hump over the hump? It's that they're built out differently. That's the long version. So what that means is, I say that because most people don't understand this. The earth itself, the energy passes through all of these things. It passes through silver, it passes through gold, it passes through aluminum. You know what I mean? That's why nobody can just throw a magnet out in the air and the magnetism's there, because the magnetism is built in every different kind of metal there is. And even the ground itself, the dirt, has magnetism properties in it. So
Absolutely.
how do you get it to recognize one to the other? You have to put it inside the core of it in order for the energy to go through it to find it. But now look at it. In every one of these experiments that we do, in every one that I'm ever going to build in here, okay, just understand this. The reason it's failing for most of us is that we're only putting iron in the core. We're not multiplying the energy in any way. We're not asking for that phase change. I'm not asking for it to go here, 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 here. Once I do, what happens? My total amount of energy increases. Why do I know that? Because every time that I take and do this setup, and you put a motor, or excuse me, a generator here, and you use the same driver, the same energy going in, right? You use the same capacitor. The only difference in the whole experiment is I change the core. What happens on my oscilloscope? It looks like there's less energy on my oscilloscope, but my capacitor feels better. Why is it feeling better when it looks like I have less energy? My oscilloscope's not set up to see the correct angle. It sees this angle. It doesn't see this angle. It shows it as a lesser energy, right? Because it's
Right.
not looking at it at the right angle. My capacitors,
We've actually discussed this
Yeah.
before, but it's similarly different context. But yeah,
yeah,
it's relative to the angle of observation. That's all it is. And so it's a
but
perspective issue.
the capacitor's not lying to you, though. It's
Right.
telling you the truth. It's your truth serum in the whole thing. It's, hey, this may be aluminum and it looks weak, but to your capacitor, it's strong. See, it's the phase. You're in different phases as it goes through. This is why people don't understand anti-gravity as well. Because in order to do anti-gravity, you must pull in all those phases. The only thing that you can do, and this is why it goes back to the conversation we we're just having, resonance. How does it build out? What is it? It's the controlling factor of energy. When you put things in resonance, you control the coupling of the energy. It's the only thing that grabs something at the same frequency when you have it oscillating here and grabs it at the frequency over here and now starts to make energy come out of it, right? It's the only thing that does that. So what are you saying you're doing? You're actually taking that energy and now using it. That environmental energy is now being used and you are controlling it over here. This is the control factor. You can't make as much energy as the earth. That's a fact. In a locality, you can use all of the energy in that locality by making sure the resonance attaches here to this here. It's how coupling works. It's high coupling versus trying to push out all the energy you can. Completely different concepts and how you build them, but it's why it works. It's why the monks can get the rock to go up onto the hill. Okay? It's why every time in biblical times they talk about horns, they talk about frequency, they talk about the different horn that shoots it across, they talk about sound. Once you understand the coherence of all of it, now you understand they didn't need to go against the earth. They didn't need to create the energy of the earth. They needed to create the operation to control it. That's all they needed to do. Completely different understanding. But think about this. If you're in the ice age and all you're doing is living underground because that's where the warmth is, you're going to learn geology. Okay? You're going to learn all about rocks. You're going to learn all about chemistry. So when you come to the surface and you start creating pyramids, why? Because you understood what it was. You learned energy in a completely different fashion. You learned coupling. You didn't learn brute force. You had no brute force. You had to use coupling as your energy. Therefore, you learn physics in a completely different manner. And it shows all over history. That's why we don't understand it today, because they learned it different.
Well, I mean, that plays directly into the significance of habitation and eddy currents, which exactly tends to be the point. You see, if think about any force, right? We know we're subject to gravity, so the force is for everything. It's down toward the center of the earth. Because at that point, it's sort of the relationship, but the sum of the whole, right? So you have like the sum of the whole versus this whatever it is. Now, in between it is that difference between how it goes. And like anything that's a difference, right? The weight is applied. But now, like what happens in a circumstance where, well, you create a void and pushing out the environment, right? As you push out the environment starts moving around what it is. So all of a sudden, now it's not subject to that sum of all forces. It's superconductive in its nature. As in where you are relative in your magnetic field, and the Earth, if you're underground, like Nathan was saying, it's a whole entire different set of parameters. The relationship of the energy is different because we know that the Earth has its own energy and energy potential and magnetism, and we know that the atmosphere and stratosphere and beyond the magnetosphere, is the external reaches of that. By placing yourself in a different relationship of the energy densities, how it acts is all different. So, on the surface, it's sort of like that border between you have all this high energy potential more above you, but it's in a more diffuse state. Whereas when you're down there, maybe it's less energy potential as a whole, but it's in a much more concentrated state. See, it's this inverse dynamic that exists between the potential and the density, okay, that leads to this whole exchange connection asymmetrically. Mm-hmm. And once you go off the surface, you've just changed that ratio entirely. Now you're in a much higher earth energy situation where not only are you surrounded by much more potential, but also the density is higher. So now you don't have that same relationship like Nathan was saying. And you're also putting yourself in a different rung of the magnetic field of the earth. And therefore the relationship of magnetism changes and gravity. Everything changes about it. So when you then come to the surface and you say, hey, well, here I am now. Wow, look at that sky. It's going to give me cancer. You kind of get the dynamic changes. It's probably less advantageous up here to be able to move energy because of what the exchange rate looks like. Mm-hmm. You have it flowing freely all around you when you're in the earth because the earth is the one conducting it through itself. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Think about it this way. Next time you see the horns, right? And you look at the Ark of the Covenant and you hear the walls of Jericho. I just want you to think about this. I want you to do this. Draw a circle, okay? And draw 5 more around it, okay? And think of each frequency of each horn that puts off. And then align them, okay? Now understand this. Every time you build another layer on the outside, every time you do that line, you're holding in the one before it. Every time you get to the next line, you're holding in the one before it. Every time you get to the next line, you're holding the one before it. Before you know it, you have super high coupling. It now cannot leak like everything else does. A leaky capacitor starts to slow down. So how much energy does it take to fill it? You say, well, in a normal capacitor, Nathan, it may blow out everywhere, right? It's open air. So it must blow out and you have no containment whatsoever. Okay. Well, what is the frequency doing? It's containing all that energy. So now I have very low leakage. Now it's like a computer capacitor. Okay. I have extremely low leakage coming out. The only leakage I have is heat. Well, that's entropy. Okay. That's not a problem here. So every time you build it out, you're getting capacitance on top of capacitance on top of capacitance on top of capacitance. You get to a point where you start to understand it the right way. High coupling is about containing the energy with very low leakage in it, but it's also about pulling the environmental energy of it in together. Because why? Because you're controlling the zones based on your resonance. Therefore, the zoning itself makes sense. So blow the horn, blow another horn at another frequency, another horn at another frequency. Before you know it, you have coupled fields that are going on. This is the understanding that you need to start to come to when it comes to anti-gravity, when it starts to come to energy. Then it starts to make sense. We could take out all of the physics that you've written down already and replace it with all of the stuff that we just talked about with resonance. We could do it with harmonics, okay? All of this stuff, and it would work perfectly. As a matter of fact, it would have less problems than what we're having now. We don't need to quantize it. We don't need to astronomical it, okay? We don't need to have apples falling on our head. What we need to understand is from a mechanical point of view, how does it build? How is the energy formed? Where does it flow? Once you understand that, it starts to come together. You start to go, oh, all this stuff that doesn't really make sense until something flows and stays together. Energy flow. How does energy work? Why is it working? Those are the questions you must ask. Okay.
Mhm.
That not all this other stuff. All the other stuff just distracts you. It's what is really going on. Okay. What does it look like? And then you build from there. It's a completely different concept in the way of looking at everything because we get so used to these giant words, okay? That, oh my God, that we're in a black hole or we're this, you know what I mean? We're in a white hole. No. What is the energy telling you? Where did it tell you it went? What did it do when it got there? Those are the things you need to look at, okay? When you start to see the world that way, things start to make sense. You go, photon and particle and wave, are they that way? Look at the Rab told you. You built out energy, boom. It didn't go as a wave, it went as a 360 sphere of energy. It hit its sheath zone, hit its sheath zone, hit its sheath zone, ran into your particle out here, which is another planet or whatever, and then that expanded, okay, in its own because it picked up the higher state of energy from it.
Mhm.
Then you have your light, right? You go, oh my God, that's all I needed to know. That's exactly how light works because light's a reflection. It's a refraction. I mean, I don't know the best word. We probably don't own one in the English language to say it correctly. It's the same thing as when you put a mirror in between something. Okay, you start to understand it in a different way.
Well, it
That's all
becomes
it's
it
doing.
becomes sort of like a one-way mirror in a way, where it both goes through and reflects at the same time. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
does both, but it does
Yes.
so in proportion to whatever it is. It's so it maintains a trajectory, but also does other things too. And part of a reflection often is a refraction or
Yes.
a diffraction. See, like there's all of whenever you have a reflection, it's often a combination of refraction and diffraction that you perceive as the reflection. So it's kind of all of them at once, and in some type of coherent proportion, given the application. That's how I see it.
But it's also why the dexahedron makes sense. If you put the sphere of light in the center and you put mirrors all around it, in the dexahedron, then you start to understand something a little differently. All those balls that we saw on the outside, okay, all now make sense. Now take that same structure and put it right there in the center of the RAV, okay? That's what they were trying to tell you the entire time. It's all there. It's all been there the whole time. What is the energy? It's a, how do I say this? It's energy bouncing around everywhere, inside there, in mirrors, onto itself, and it's creating these points. And every time it hits that corner, it creates that point. That's why that dexahedron made sense. That's why they put it in history. That's why they keep making them. That's why you keep finding them all over the place. It's because of that. It's a prism. Light in energy in a prism. That's what that's building out in all these things. That's why they're trying to tell you all the whole time. We're all built of light. Why? Because light's in a prism and it creates energy, which creates plasma, which creates a structure for all humanity.
See, like one weird way of trying to understand that, and it's super weird once you try to think about it, is if you imagine yourself inside of a like mirror sphere, where like you're literally just inside of a mirrored sphere, and if it could somehow be lit, but so you could see around it without it having a single point of light, so to speak, right? So that's your thought experiment, right? Like, what is it like to actually move about and observe in this situation? Because what you'd end up noticing is that every angle of you is somehow projected onto this outer surface, and if you move, everything moves relative, right? But all of a sudden the proportions become extraordinarily distorted, and everything is repeating, and it's repeating all around you, but it's also constantly shifting as long as you move. And the very interesting thing is, what you would observe is based on perspective. So if you're the person standing there, you're going to see one thing. But if that person had a camera attached to their shoulder facing this way, and a camera attached to their shoulder facing the other way, whatever, all these things are going to see completely different things, even though they're within a relatively small area looking at the same environment. It's a very interesting thing. That's how these exchanges and these motions are. It's just extraordinarily hard to wrap your head around such a complex and grotesque, example. But I'd actually kill to be in the position just to experience it, to be inside of a mirrored sphere where you could see some, there's some semblance of light. It'd be interesting, but that's the way I think about it. It just tends to break my head.
I don't think I said the name right. It's dodecahedron.
Dodecahedron, yeah.
Yeah, I got the name wrong. Sorry. I'm trying to find it real quick so I could show everybody exactly what I'm trying to say to you. Oh, come on. Go ahead and talk for a minute, Joe. Give me a second. I'm going to look this up.
All right. Steven says, old man, that's what led to my theory of line of sight from UFOs using laser beams and holographic projections. That has physicality and two-way communication. That's how they get into your house. There you go. Reflections of self into your house. Deadfish says that I have perfect vision and I know what stuff is. It was a crystal. Yes. I've slowed down Deadfish's stuff myself. I have manipulated the photos in various ways and exposed all sorts of high, strange weirdness from his own footage. What I found was geometrically exactly what he described. And there was clearly some kind of weird electromagnetic glitch / maybe time dilation circumstance where that was experienced there. Like, I don't think there's any other way to explain his footage. But as far as stuff being legit is concerned, it's as legit as it gets, what he saw. In fact, like, it was oddly similar to what I had seen another time. I think my visual of it was different, but my experience of it was exactly the same. I had a malfunctioning camera, distorted it. Like I took a ton of photos, I took videos. I got 1 or 2 photos out of the deal, period. Despite having taken a bunch. The one that I got had very similar and strange geometric type underlaying pattern.
Mhm.
It was just all weird stuff.
Okay, I think I have it now. Maybe not. Oh, this thing, it doesn't want to give it to me again. You know what? We'll just pull this up. Okay. Over here on the, I'm pushing 100 buttons. Over here on the right, you see these throughout history that commonly put out there. You're going to see on every single one of them that the circles that are around the inner circles, how big they are. Now, what I want you to do is go and write down every one of these circles. Turn this thing and write it down, or take a measurement on each one of them. What you're going to find is the exact same zoning that goes on when I'm telling you about harmonics and fifths. Every single one of them. It's going to completely make what looks like a target. 1 circle, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to continue to do the same thing on every one of these holes and build it out. Those are your harmonics at work. Okay? Looks kind of like the center of the rab, doesn't it? As soon as you look at it, they start to see the little round balls on the outside, how they build out. As soon as they break the corners here, they're bursts of light that have gone in rotation to one another.
Yeah, they try to say all sorts of weird stuff about that thing, like that it was a knitting device to make gloves.
No.
They said that their most recent one was that it's an astrological device, which maybe there's some truth to that. There could be, like, but if you that you peer through one hole and another, then you line up the tab at the top or something, and then all of a sudden it lines up with known, astrological stuff. Yeah, astral. Yeah, we're familiar with some of Sheila's work. It's very, very cool. I know Nathan had the privilege of doing
I
a
get
show.
to speak to her, yeah.
Yeah, doing a show with her. That was really cool.
I just wanted to show you guys that because it's interesting that they put this thing out there. Here it is. You're seeing the complete structure of it. You're wondering why they do it. And I'm just telling you why they did it. Because they understood this in coupling. This is coupling. This is what it is. This is what you're doing. This is why the rod builds out with little spheres in the center. Because every time it bursts out in its geometry, you get the spherical structure because it rotates upon each other in continuous energy. This isn't some kind of knitting thing, okay? This isn't something you put your candle in. You know what I mean? This was done because they're trying to pass on knowledge to you. And the only way that you understand any of this kind of knowledge is when you understand what energy actually does. Once you figure that out,
Grandma, I need a
easy.
new Jimmy hat, except you don't have a hole wide enough.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. This is proof they understood it.
Yeah, man.
This is it's an intellectual puzzle on when your society has grown up enough to understand it. This is how you know. Okay? They followed the energy. They finally understood it. They're finally ready to take the next step. It's not knitting. Our next step is not knitting. Sean, what's up, brother? Nice to hear from you, my friend.
Sean. Hope you're doing well, buddy.
Love it when Sean tunes in, man. Oh, man. Yeah, dude, I absolutely love this stuff because as soon as we get into the physics, it starts to all make sense. Once you start weeding through all the extra stuff and oh my God, this doesn't make sense, so we automatically need to confront it with a whole new theory. No, it all made sense from the beginning. You just didn't put the pieces together in the right way yet. Not that you're not going to get there. It's just you have to see it a different way.
Right on.
So.
Hey, shameless plug since Sean's here. we're going to be airing our second episode of Plasma Unleashed this week. So
next week, Tuesday.
yeah, this coming week.
There you go.
So yeah, so tune in Tuesday to check out the premiere of that. Some exciting stuff, more telling the story. So if you weren't here all along, you kind of get the background of it. You get to have a firm understanding of, how we came about it and how Sean discovered it and how we built upon it. And it's going to unfold the story nicely. And then we'll start getting into like the heavy duty stuff that, in my opinion, and I say this from like the humblest place, it's going to eviscerate any of the current plasma and plasmoid research that's
At
out
least
there. By the time we get to the end, it's like this is going to show it all, prove it all, build it up in an understandable way, and eviscerate any concepts that basically aren't this, unfortunately, for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely eye-opening. So this is the second episode. In the second episode, we're distinguishing the RAV from plasmoids and ball lightning, just telling you the differences of what's going on and our opinions. Okay, take your own way of looking at it when you're done. The next episode, Joe and I are going to show you our RAVs. So Joe made one, an awesome in crystal. Dude, coolest thing I ever saw. Okay, when that thing lit up everywhere. That prism it created in there was just absolutely mind-blowing. So Joe's going to describe that. I'm going to go into the double RAV and things like that I did when I made the RAV. So that's going to be cool. Sean's going to show us some more cool stuff about the RAV, going into more detail on just unbelievable stuff that he did with this thing. So it's kind of going to go into the woo a little bit more. Actually, I shouldn't say it's woo at all. It's more of redefining the RAV is what it is, and redefining plasma physics is what it is. So all three different views on that is just awesome. The fourth episode goes into just light. So you see the light, you see the structure of it. You say, is it a camera effect? Is it not a camera effect? How do we know? And then how do we distinguish one from the other? And then the different angles and points of view on this. Dude, let me just tell you, when I saw that RAV form and then Sean spun the thing on the bottom, right? And you see this thing following it. You know what I mean? After everybody told you it's camera effect, that it's spinning like this, you're just like mind blown. Like, because they said, oh, shaky camera. Sean puts this thing on a tripod, focuses it right on, and goes, woo. And you're like, oh my God, dude, we're all done. Then the next effect is, oh, by the way, it looks like light over here, right? It looks like camera effect floating. Oh, but then it hits the plasma and becomes plasma. And then it breaks back out and becomes this effect. And you're like, but it was light. And then now it's plasma, but now it's light again. And then you're like, dude, my mind's blown again, right? So you start to see all these things and you go, man, this looks very familiar in all the teachings that they gave you in the church. And you're going, this looks like a grail. You know what I mean? This looks like the halo. This looks like the thing in the staff that all the church people carry. And you're like, dude, I'm like
hold on.
crazy.
The one thing that we don't really harp on all too often, and I know we'll get into in that episode, but I think it's worth bringing up right now anyway, is the fact that this thing has a tendency to put out basically, like, I don't know what else to call it, anti-light.
Yeah.
Oh,
like the real dark black that goes over everything.
A light like projection that's like a shadow. I don't know. Like, I've seen it with my own two eyes. So I know what it is in seeing it, but describing something like that, because it's not black light like a UV light or something. No, it's sort of like smoke, but it's not smoke, but it's like light. Like, yeah, right. I don't know. It's like absorbing almost all the light in that particular area that it's shining. Very strange. Very, very strange stuff. Just saying.
It's just interesting because it puts a whole new perspective on what you're looking at. And again, it's up to the viewer to decide at the end. But when we put it out there and show you the case for each one of them, it truly shows what's going on. Man, the one that blows my mind to this day, and the one I absolutely my favorite picture ever, Joe, the black dot, the plasmoid building out, and you see it rotating on that line. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you got me. Okay. No matter what I see in this world, I love that picture. I love the video of it, just everything about it, because it tells you so much. There's an energy exchange between the one that's lit up and the one that's dark, and they're going back and forth in the exchange. And you're seeing the zone build up, but then you're seeing a rainbow inside with all the different colors.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it's epic. Just
It really
epic.
is. It really is. This is it. It's like everything that we talked about for the first year just came to a head with all this stuff, and it's like, oh, now how do we do it? I mean, I just still would love to see the experiment where we, get the energy off of it. It's still got to happen, and
Oh yeah. Well, that's coming. So I'm trying to coincide the dates with the build. Okay. So I'm going to build the double rab, but I'm going to build it in a chamber where I can pull the energy out. Okay. So we're getting there. I don't have time yet, but it's good because we're still got episodes to go before we get there. So
Mhm.
that might be like the season finale of the whole thing, is we actually put out our own energy machine at the end. Okay. One of the things close to episode 8 is we're going to get a little bit religious on it. Okay. And I say that in the way of, we're going to take a religious picture and see if it shows it in plasma. Okay. And you decide what you think of it. But I think it's important to do it because we see historical things, Knights Templar. You get into the whole story of that along with it, along with how each thing in plasma shows, like I said, the grail, it shows it in light. We get into geometrical patterns in coils and why it shows the energy looping into one another. Okay. And you go, oh my God, is that really what I think it is? Okay. Just things like that they show in, like the staff, when you see him put down the staff, and then you see next to it the Rav built out in brilliant light, but then you see the staff with a center round thing, and then it builds out in a brilliant light, and you're looking at it going, there's no way that's the same thing.
So
But
check this out. This ties in with what Nathan's talking about now, and not to open up a whole new can of worms, but uh,
oh, it's going
so
to.
well, no, hold on. So Nathan said, showed me the pictures again today of the plasmoid sphere with the grid on it, right, where it was all sectioned off with the nodes, right?
Mhm.
And we were talking about the patterns in it. I was like, yeah, of course it's in there. I said this a long time ago. I sent him, you could see the 6-pointed star, and then you could actually see, like we had previously talked about, like the Ankh heat in of the axes and how that all flows. And then that kind of, well, I immediately was like, well, I mean, obviously I know those geometries are connected to the Rodin spiral 369, the whole 9 yards. We've covered that extensively. I've went into all that. But what I realized is that I've never structured 369 as a grid. So I did so in a logical way from right to left, like the old way of writing, and then so everything was connected that way. Well, when you pattern out the same exact thing, okay, as the Rav is showing, but you do it in a grid like that, well, this is what you get. Check this out. Does that look familiar to anybody?
Oh, that's the Rodin thing right there.
No, well, yeah, no, it's the
Rodin
Freemasons, man.
369 geometrical structure. Absolutely.
So that's what you get is the square and the what's it called there? I can't remember shit off the top of my head because I'm an idiot.
I think that needs to be a whole episode, Joe, where you do the Alpha Omega and you show how it all ties in together so that people could see it. And like, just because it's kind of hard when you put up little spots, but when you did the flow of it, you know what I mean? In line, it's so much more, makes so much more sense. It flows really well, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Square and a compass. Thank you, Astral. You're coming through big today, man.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What is that? It's not Knight Templar, it's
That's
the
what
other
I'm
one.
saying. Yeah, it's literally square and a compass. Like it's
Well,
the symbol of the Freemason.
Freemason. There you go.
Yeah, but what do you think lies at the top, at the crest of the compass? Is the sun. Uh, yeah,
No, I mean I'm there.
you know, it's
They've held this knowledge forever. Let me just say this to you guys. We haven't found a way to see it until the Rav, but they've held this knowledge forever. And now all of it's going to come out because it finally got to the point where we can see what they saw. Now we can interpret it in the way it's supposed to be. That was the point. You know, it's like squaring the circle. It's like finding out exactly what they were trying to say, except for we didn't open one book to find it. We didn't listen to all of what they said. Nature naturally shows itself at some point, and we were lucky enough to be at this time in history to find it.
and nature repeats itself and only works this way. What does that mean? It means take everything that we talked about and just apply it to everything in life. Apply it to everything in life. Because what you'll notice is that everything fits into the same exact sequence of patterns. This is exactly the sequence of patterns. And the only times that you get you get these incoherences, like these disruptions, these bad things, it's because the ratios aren't right. Once you get the ratios right, it goes exactly like this, and that's it. It's just the offset differential. It's just, I've been. You can go back to episode 1 of this. I'm talking about a rock, and I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know what it is, but it's something to do with like some kind of offset differential thing. I don't know that I fully understand what I'm saying, but I feel like that's got to be something to do with it. Yeah, it has something to do with it. It's everything. So that offset differential is the beat. that is the beat. You get it?
Yeah, I think some of these things that you see in 2D you have to put in 3D form in order for you to see them correctly. That's one thing that we're gonna have to do together, Joe, a little bit. Some of this stuff is meant to be in 3D. Once you change the access on this, it's a strange world. I love my CAD program because I'm able to put it in there, all the angles, then spin them to where I look at it and I can see it actually what it is. You know what I mean? It's an insane part of this world, man. But anyway, those are kind of the episodes that are coming up, man. There's a lot of good content coming up on the Project Rav there. And I like the format and the way that we're doing it in. And some of the subtle changes we're making throughout it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get better at editing to put things together the right way. You know what I mean? But we're getting there. And we're showing what it is. And that's kind of the important part. So I'm hoping this whole, we got like, what? I want to say at least 30 to 40 episodes that we can make out of this thing.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to be doing it for a while. So yeah, we got it at 3 weeks apart now. We're going to try to cut that down to 2 weeks. And then as I can edit better, we'll get it down to 1 week. You know what I mean? But I think that's kind of our goal, is to put out a weekly thing. And then I'm going to have to put out my testing on my Bedini machine here soon. So we may make the Rav every other week and do the energy projects. You know what I mean? Throw them in there as they come up, because I got another cool one. I made this battery. Okay. This battery box is awesome. Okay. I keep showing it to everybody, but I'm going to show it right now because I think it's amazing.
Right on.
Let me find it real quick here. Hopefully I have it.
Yeah, you find that in the meantime. First off, dead fish. I'll ask Nathan to send that over to me. I'll take a look, see what I can find. In that, I'll see if I could track it for you and see if there's anything that pops out at me. And I know where to reach you, so I'll shoot you an email when I have an opportunity to take a look at it, let you know what I find. And then we have Steven saying, Joe, you need to test that pyramid at the base and see if it's magnetic. What period? What pyramid? And what am I missing? Sorry. I don't have a pyramid, I don't think, to test. But clarify for me, and I'll, if I could do it, then I will.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull this up a different way. So give me just a minute. I'm almost there. Here it is. There you go, right there. So check this out, guys. I made it. Just looks like a little clear battery, right? Here's the cool thing about it. I'm making the dividers right now. I got in my strips of copper and zinc, and so it makes, how do I say this, like little dividers in each one of them, right? And based on how you put the plastic in the bottom, it gives you the spacing for all your dividers. Now, here's the thing that is kind of weird about it is each one of these bars only came out 1 inch by 3 inches, right? So in order to get the height I needed there, I needed to put two in. Now I put them 10 millimeters apart, so about little, right around a half inch or a little higher, right? So what it actually does is it may pull off a secondary effect. If the energy goes through it, it may create a capacitance between the two pieces of copper, the capacitance between the two pieces of zinc, along with a dielectric in the inside that goes in between each one of them in order to create the battery cell. So as they go two the same kind, they have a capacitor effect. As they have two are different, they have a battery effect. We may see a total different way to look at this. So what I actually did was the holes in it you see right there for the battery terminals, I made them smaller. I got studs that go into them now that you just have a little screw down top. Okay, they go onto there. The holes in the top are just for effect. They're just look cool. And of course, I put the name on there because I put it on everything now. But in the inside is where the magic happens. So a clear battery. Now, why did I do this? What I'm trying to do here in making a battery like this is we did the potato experiment and we put the copper in there. We also put the zinc in there and we got a certain amount of energy. The energy was good. It got up to 12 volts. Okay. As a matter of fact, I think we exceeded that. Bernie and I got it up to about 16 volts and we got, a couple amps in there. But as soon as you tried to drive a load with it, it was garbage. There wasn't enough pushback on that cell in order to push out the energy, right? So in order to do this, when we put the dividers in and we put orange slices in now in between each one and then squish it together like a big sandwich, now I'm hoping the energy works in there where we could pull the energy out like a battery and it has enough pushback in between it in order to create that zone that forces it out. Okay. So I think that's going to be very interesting if it works. Okay. If not, it should teach us more about battery cell technology, right? Because we're building it just like batteries build it. We're building in, each one, the different plates, the correct one they use in a battery. Now, I can very well take alum and put it in there and put it maybe an eighth of an inch apart or a 16th of an inch apart and build out a perfect battery out of this thing. But that's not exactly what I'm looking for. I just want to take something in nature and make it, work and do it in a kid's experiment so that they could do it in high school, you know what I mean? Or anywhere they want to. So kind of just a cool little experiment on the side.
Right on. Want to clarify one thing real quick. So I asked for clarification on that, and he was saying that he was talking about my sketch, and at the bottom of the pyramid, he was saying check for magnetism there. So it's an interesting point on this particular drawing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the bottom of the pyramid being like right there. Okay, well, that's in between the switch. So that's right at the switch points where the 4 goes to the 8. Where the 4 goes to the 8 is exactly that magnetic switch point on that side. So there's both polarities coming into each other in a diffuse state at that exact section at the base of the pyramid. So it's interesting because at the actual point in between dead center, that would be it would be neutral because like again, that's where the polarity switches. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, I get it. One thing I think we're going to find, Joe, is Rodin right. That when somebody drew this when they first started, were they right? We see the evidence now. You know what I mean? We know what's supposed to be there. My curiosity is when we put it all together, is it right? Just curious, because when they came up with that, who wrote it? I mean, think about that. Who wrote that? We see it everywhere, but who wrote it and why did they write it? I'm curious.
You got me.
So I'm wondering if they have it 100% right. It's interesting to see it because we know what's at the core now. We know why they say it's an atom. We know what the nucleus is. We see every part about it. Now, as far as they say the other things that are beyond that, I don't know, but this is much bigger than an atom when we look at the RAV. We're going to find out. You know what I mean? I would be very interested to see in every one of those little spheres or something else built out in the center that would give credence to the black hole theory that there's a solar system in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I agree. Hey,
I love the look, though. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just for entertainment purposes, it's been a while. You want to pull out the video of the quartz crystal?
Oh yeah. Give me a second.
Yeah, I think we have a whole bunch of new people who haven't seen that. I think that we need to,
dude, that
flash that gem around a little bit. No pun intended.
Oh yeah. Let's see where I have it. Dude, there's so much in the member section on the Sean's electrodes. The first part of the RAV, the calf. Sorry, I'm looking through it as we do this, Joe. I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
There's just so much cool stuff on there. That whole thing. Oh, let's see what he did with the other one. Let me see. Trying to find the timeline.
Dead fish needs a wet nap.
Here we go. It's even got Joe's music in here. That's what's cool about it. I love that.
Yeah.
So give me a second. Let me turn up the volume. Oh yeah, I'll pull it up.
I'll have to pull some of my other crystal stuff out of my archives and send it to you. We'll share it one day.
Oh yeah, here we go. You ready?
Oh yeah, let's go.
Turn up the volume.
In the deck of the terror, where the head of the fool. In the flesh, I live the life of a beaten, broken tool. We're all on a different path, no matter who we are. Made of the same old shit, junk left over from a star. I'm like I know a thing about what I just said. It made perfect sense to me as it was running through my head. Though I might be as mistaken as a snake is for a rope, I will always speak the words untold and spit the straight dope. I'm just a straight dope, talking straight dope. Tell it how it is, how it may be. Maybe.
Look at that.
Yeah, wrapped inside the crystal.
In the deck of the terror, I wear the hat of the fool. In the flesh, I live the life of a beaten, broken tool. We're all on a different path, no matter who we are.
Oh man, let me mute it real quick. Dude, the fact that you see it on the outside, right? It acts like normal plasma or high voltage going around it. And then you can see the prism effect. As soon as you get in there a little bit, boom, it starts to light up, dude.
Oh yeah. And that's not triboelectric reaction either. That's not what it looks like. It's crazy.
Dude, that was so bright. Hold on, let me just take it back a little bit. Dude, look at that. That is a prism. That is light reflecting off every surface on the inside of that thing. That's amazing.
The energy is burrowed inside of it in coherence. It's crazy.
Yeah. Dude, that's mind blowing in itself right there. Like we all see it, man, and we all go back to Hutchison, and when he showed it on the crystal and it was going over the crystal, and you go, oh man, look, It's lighting up the crystal, but the energy's still on the outside. This is in the inside of that sucker.
Yeah, I got it on the inside. That was all by design too, man. That was a great experiment.
Joe did this with a Tesla coil, by the way.
Oh, yes, I did.
That's even more amazing. Okay.
And you can see after it blows the piece off the side, rather than stay outside of it, it goes back in.
Yeah.
So you have a spinning plasma orb inside of a crystal lattice, a solid, well, it was solid, right? Solid crystal lattice. And so you have the plasma actually structured and rotating inside of a lattice structure. Crazy. Then it breaks it all apart because, you know.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to get the moment where it started flinging stuff. I don't know if I'll be able to get it here. There's where you see part of it blown
and
off.
look, you can see it inside of it right there. Bang.
Oh, it's in there, all right. There's no getting around that. Yeah. That's so cool. Imagine if you had the right frequency now, Joe. If you got the frequency of that crystal in there, wow.
It would just be in there then, and then I wouldn't be blowing it to bits. But you want to know something? I've spent a lot of time looking at people's projects and experiments that they've done with plasma and quartz because, frankly, especially on YouTube, it seems to be a pretty popular thing to want to try and do.
Mm-hmm.
Yet nobody has gotten it inside.
Nobody did what you did.
Not even close.
No.
But that's because I tricked it. And I knew what I was doing because I had tried a couple of times before and I was like, this isn't going the way I hoped and expected. And then I thought about it. I stood back and I thought about it for a second. I was like, why does the RAV form? Well, we know it only forms once the conditions are set.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a spot on that rock underneath it or where the conditions are set. And I knew that if I could put the quartz on top of it, but leave ever so much of that channel exposed, right, that it would go and seek out the channel to know that it could form. Now, it's like plugging something into an electrical line. You see, until you introduce something to the line, there's no current being used. So it's not going that way, right? So it's not until you introduce something. So by introducing it, I knew that it would be enticed to form the RAV just because it knew that it was there. Then, because it couldn't form on it so much, I realized that it's going to want to form and pull through to it. So that means that anything that stood between point A and point B was going to, act as the new channel. I knew it was going to start to channel into it. And that's exactly what it did. So it, like leaving a little tiny bit of it exposed acted just as enough for it to know that it could form that RAV because it knew the conditions existed. It was very, very interesting and very, very cool.
Nice. Okay.
Determine humans on other planets.
This right here is what Joe used. Not this color. Joe's got a black one and the gold. This is the green one. But this is exactly what he used to zap that piece of quartz.
Oh, yeah.
So just a shameless plug on my side, guys. You're going to find this in the description. I have an Esty page where I sell Tesla coils like this. Looks just like this, except for the bottom's black and the top is black. I do once in a while do different colors of them. You see, they're extremely powerful. But yeah, this is a shameless plug that I do sell these on there on the Esty site. And if you look around the video that you're probably watching, there are ones as well for my Shopify account. So yeah, you can get yourself one of these Tesla coils. But what Joe did is I'll give you a different top if you want it. Instead of the spike at the top, there's a rod that goes down the center. Go ahead and describe what you did.
All right. So what I did was the breakout on mine is a little different. it has a wire breakout on the side. So what I did was I took the alligator clip to the wire breakout. Okay, that's at the end of the entire coil, so you're getting the highest voltage right off there. And I ran a line to an anode that I set up, and I set that above it. Then I put a little water dish out, and I took another alligator clip to the center part, the rod down the center. I hooked that up to the cathode end. Okay, so that was the flux exchange, like this, right? And because they run off of PNP. So the PNP is trying to throw the entire thing into forced resonance. Plus then I have a couple tricks up my sleeve that I use every so often to try and amplify things. Like I may or may not have put a homemade capacitor directly on top of the anode.
They've done something like that.
May or may not have done that. May or may not have also, in the past also created like different scalar fields and then purposely collapsed them to blow the field out like extensively. So then you could like gas tubes and stuff like 8-9 feet away. You know how hard it is to light a gas tube? Like I'm talking like an argon gas tube. Anyway, I digress. So that's the setup, and then I just use the hot end, so to speak, off the top wire, as the anode, and then I use the cool center as the cathode, and then there's your exchange. And I didn't have a piece of clay, so I used a what I consider to be a suitable rock, some semi-porous. Took on a little bit of water, was able to do that. Had it sit in the water for a little bit, put a spot of water, flattened the section so like it wasn't going out of control and crazy, and then just let it ride on there. And it burrowed all the way down all through that rock. Like created a channel all the way through that rock. And the rab would form, it would generally form pretty small compared to like Sean's and even Nathan's. Just because of the configuration and how it is, but it had all the effects and it was very, very stable. Very, very stable. Like if it was just running a rab, it was a little tiny rab ball, except it was as bright as the sun and throwing off every color, and it would throw off like zoned discharge, like laser discharges and all this kind of crap. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Totally worth it to do with the Tesla coil. And the Tesla coil, in my opinion, has the right type of energy and the right resonance forcing capabilities to do something like force it into the crystal. See, those properties were good. What failed with that, for what it's worth, is that there was an incoherence between the frequency in and the frequency generated by the quartz. If they were inharmonic, then it would be coherent and then it would but they weren't. So instead of just growing a rav inside where it just stayed and was there and was creating pressure on the quartz, therefore adding a piezo effect to it, amplifying the effect. Rather than that, it was just blowing the lattice structure apart.
I'll show you right here. This is the one like Joe got, and you see at the top of it on the upper left side, there's the wire that hangs off the side, and it's done on purpose that way. So that down the center, there's a hole in the center at the top, and then at the very bottom, there's a ring on the inside. So the rod will actually go down there and stay centered out at all times when you have it there. It's just a different option on the coil to pull the inside energy, which is the one wire energy that you can use that's absolutely not connected to the Tesla coil at all, just a rod that runs down the center. But it acts as a perfect cathode in the situation when you're doing an anode cathode and you want it to work like a rab. Kind of a secret on the Tesla coil that most people don't understand. If you watch a channel and you know the one wire energy, then you already know the answer of what we're doing there.
Well, especially with the PNP and the way that it's hooked up. just
yeah.
like that. You have, like Nathan talks about the slosh, the back and the forth. This is literally push and pull and push and pull and push and pull. So every single, so it is so enticed to want to make that small exchange, no matter how small the exchange is between them, it will like stop at nothing as long as it knows the other is there. That's the trick and the key all along, is that it won't do shit if it doesn't know the other one's there.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole, that's one of the main bases between the water drop on the top and the water on the bottom. And I know it's not necessary, but that is the principle behind why the experimentation started that way, was because you're putting this huge bias into the water and into the clay, and then you're being able to bring it to the surface through this water to show the anode, hi, I'm here. Follow me, come get me, pull me through. And it does because it knows it's there. And then it'll stop relentlessly and burrow itself and structure and create all this different changes, material changes, just to make this exchange because it knows it's there. And that's the key, is without it, it's the same as any other arc hitting any other surface. Really, at that point, that's true. So,
Yeah.
something to think about.
Yeah, it's fascinating what you could do with those things, because it's basically tricking it into being a bipolar Tesla coil instead of, you know what I mean, just a single a monopole. It goes from a monopole to a bipolar, and that's what it's doing. And it's so hilarious that the fact that you could just do that with a coil, and it also gives credence to the whole thing about the water. Now, if you had the thing submerged further in water, you could probably get a whole nother effect out of it, Joe. When you turned it on and the oscilloscope into that water might have told you exactly what frequency that thing's going off at, and we could have found a way to readjust the testicle to match.
Well, the good news is that we know where quartz is at, because quartz rings at a specific frequency, 32,000 hertz approximate. So, you know, it's if you could just find the harmonic of that. Yeah.
Well,
Deadfish was saying the quartz looks like lab grown. It's so clear. I mean, this is, yeah, it really is. Like how clear that is.
So I kind of been working on it a little behind the scenes, Joe, and this may not make a lot of sense yet. So I'm pulling off a trick here. This is for my Tesla coil. Now, when I first originally did the one wire energy, we did a wall wire, 14 gauge insulated copper wire. Now I took this top of a Tesla coil and I put a bunch of holes in it. Okay. The bottom of the Tesla coil, number one, will match those hole patterns. What I'm essentially doing right here is I could put one wire in, or I could put a bunch of them in. And what I'm trying to do is take mass of copper and reduce the frequency of the coil, but not allowing it to spark over by insulating each one of them. So I'm going to drop rods in there, basically straighten these things out and drop them in like rods, and find out exactly what the frequency drop I can get out of the entire thing is, because I'm making not a solid core like a normal transformer, but not a hollow core like the Tesla coil is. I'm going for a hybrid core, and I want to see exactly, because I can add Tesla coil on top of Tesla coil and add more mass to the outside winding and drop the frequency in half, right? But can I do it this way too? So when I put a normal rod in there, the frequency drops. But what happens when I put multiple in there? Now I'm trying to drop it even more, but I'm not allowing it to spark over. So I'm going to be able to pull energy out of every single one of these wires when I clip it. And it's not going to stop because the Tesla coil is not going to stop oscillating. So each one of them is going to be full of energy. I just multiplied the living daylights out of the numbers that I'm going to pull out of here. But I don't want anything sparking over. That's why I gave it a little distance between each one.
Mhm.
So I need to find exact parameters of where it goes. But dude, fascinating way to look at it.
Really is. That looks like coax, huh?
What's that?
That looks like coax, huh?
Oh, it's number 14 gauge wall wire. So
Oh,
if you
that's all it is. Just 14 gauge wire. Oh, okay.
So it's like-
I don't know. Oh, I wasn't looking at the keyboard in the back. I was going to say that looks like the way that it's bent around looks like how coax wraps.
oh yeah, no, it's easier than that. It's taking what I did in the beginning. Remember how I put the wire in, I pulled it out, and energy stayed in the Rodin coil or something, right? Well, it's the same wire. I'm going to use the exact same wire, and I'm going to do it. This is what I started out the one wire energy experiments. Was this right here, 14 gauge wall wire, pure copper with
Right on.
the outside, covered. So yeah, it's just Romex. It's pretty simple.
Yeah,
Just-
man.
Dude, there's different ways to do different things, and I don't think we've explored them all, Joe. And that's why I wanted to show it. You know what I mean? Get
Yeah.
people
No,
thinking about different ways to do this stuff. So I got to give a shout out to Ian. I thought, yeah, it's Ian that did this. Yeah, I want to shout out him because he does the cap bank, right? But he did this as well. He did the one wire energy, but he put four or five rods down it, and I thought nothing about it, right? Until I wanted to lower the frequency of my coil. And then I go, okay, now I can multiply this effect. How much copper mass can I throw down the center of this thing to drop it? So without ruining the core, and I did the same thing, by the way, in one of the cores for my, what was it? We're working on Mike's device, and I did it in the center of that one too.
okay.
So it basically, by putting the rods in individually, it looks like a little mini gun in the center, but they're all spaced out evenly and perfectly. But it means now I can control the saturation rate of that core. Okay? Now I can use smaller objects inside there. Instead of just putting the rods in all like Bedini did, all tight knit together, now I put separation in it. Like Mike said, tape each one of them. Well, dude, I don't have all day.
No.
I would rather print it out and place them in there
Mhm.
than to be over there fiddling with tape.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare.
Listen, it works smarter, not harder. And on top of that, if you design it once and it functions right, and you wanted to do it again, you're either going to be stuck doing the same exact tape job, or you're going to just print up the same damn thing that worked right the first time.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, it also allows you, how do I say this? Now I can try different cores because they sell different materials in those little rods than I could get in a big fat rod, right? So now I can get cool things, or I could make the material easy and make them into rods. I can do whatever I want, man. That's kind of the point. I'm defying what everybody does normally because that's the whole point of experimentation. I'm going to rip out what you think is normal and I'll replace it with something else because that's just what we do in the lab. So,
Right on.
anyway, I think that's cool, guys. But just a couple things going on tonight. I'm going to be on Traveling Fools channel later on today, so check that out, guys. It's going to be an awesome show. If you like to just laugh and have fun, man, tonight 7:30 Pacific Standard Time, man, I'll be over there. It'll be awesome. Joe and I'll be back next week, man. Also after the premiere of the RAV, man, we're going to have some fun with that. You know what I mean? That's going to be a real cool episode. I'm looking forward to it, man. And then we got a bunch of episodes after that. Really cool stuff. I want to
And
shout
the
out.
episode's going to pick up too. Like once this whole like little bit of minutia is done and we get into the weird shit.
Oh
Chef
yeah,
kiss.
I think Joe's waiting for that one because we're just
it's all weird after the next 2-3 weeks, 2-3 episodes. It's all weird, man. Nothing normal about it.
I think we just have to lay the groundwork of how everything does, and I think I think Sean does an awesome job of laying out how things are going, and basically, it's his experiment. We're giving honor to him, man, and doing all of it. I think it's awesome. So you know what? We how do I say this? We have him showing off all the good stuff and exactly what he created. Then we're going to go into the more exotic parts about it. And trust me when I say this, Sean's never at a loss for coming up with new experiments for this thing. And I've seen a ton of them, and he's still coming up with new stuff.
Yeah, he has. He definitely has interesting direction, and with the direction that probably would have never occurred to me comes just another accentuation of it. But what's beautiful about it is that because it accentuates something so much when he changes the configuration,
Mm-hmm.
it just pulls right back to the initial conversation, to show this is exemplary as to what we were saying initially. And now you could see it clear as day and undeniable. And then that's really what he's doing in changing all the configurations, is pulling it apart and showing all the attributes, in their most pronounced form. So, kudos to Sean as always, does excellent work, and we're excited to be working with him on this.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So anyway, also I want to give a shout out, guys, dude. Memberships galore today. Darren, 5 old men build membership. Awesome, Darren. Ulysses, 10 old men build membership, man. Rocking it out, man. And Lightspeed, man, you got another 5 old men build membership. I just want to give another shout out to Lightspeed on this. He has created this computer program, man. And he's showing me the parts of it. And he gave me a list of stuff that he bought for it. Okay. And all the different sensors that he got and how he's picking up how the energy flows. The one that shows the amps, the one that shows the volts. Okay. All these little things you can buy on Amazon. And once we have this thing all here in the shop here, I'll show it to you all hooked up. We're going to put it on the Gravity's flyer and show all the sensors working and everything. Then we'll give out a list of everything, and I'm sure he'll share the program with everybody as well. Dude, I'm like waiting. I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm like anticipation, like a kid waiting for Christmas, man. So cool when he showed it to me. I got to see the program and play with it a little bit. You know what I mean? But when everything's hooked up, that's when the beauty happens. It's like, ooh, it turned on the power. Now I got volts, amps, frequency. I get excited. You know what I mean? And then, oh my God, over here, I got the sensor over here that tells me where the magnetic field is, and I can move over it. Oh, photo sensors, I can see more. Dude, I'm going to be so excited. Like I said, kitty Christmas time, man. There's no getting around this, guys. So.
I love it when Nathan gets excited. It gets me excited.
Dude, it's like a whole different view of the world at that point, man. Yeah, he says all open source, so he's going to share it. So, dude, this is going to be outrageous. So, yeah, I'm excited, man. He showed me pictures. I'll say this, Lightspeed, take your time, get it right, man. And when you're ready, we're all here for you, man. You'll have to come over that day and show me, because he does live here in California. We're going to have to make a special trip. Either go there or he comes here. We'll have to see it in person, man. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so that's the modulation we've been talking about and hoping for. So bring it on.
Dude, it's going to make every experiment out of this world and what we see. It's going to change how we do it at home forever. So, all right, guys, with that said, I just want to say thank everybody for watching today. You guys have been awesome, man. Totally epic chat, man. You guys are beyond belief good. So, with that said, I'm going to take off. Joe?
All right, fellas. Peace and love.
The old man real. The old man real. The old man real. The old man real. The old man real.
builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality restricted from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds.